All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are literally going to dismantle reality as we know it. We're stepping into the brilliant mind of a 2nd century philosopher named Nāgārjuna. By looking specifically at chapter 1 of his foundational ancient text, the Mūlamadhyamakakārikā, we are going to use pure logic to completely deconstruct the very bedrock of our everyday experience, causality. We're going to explore this mind-bending concept called the union of the 3 spheres of causality, and as you'll see, breaking down our rigid assumptions about cause and effect is actually a total game changer for finding profound psychological freedom.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We've got 1, the myth of the cause; 2, the trap of the 4 extremes; 3, the union of the 3 spheres; 4, the magic of the 2 truths; and finally, 5, acting without acting. Let's get right to it. Section 1. The myth of the cause. We're starting by challenging something I guarantee you accept as an absolute, unquestionable fact of life: the actual mechanics of how things happen. Just picture this for a second. If you drop a glass on the floor and it shatters, what really breaks it? You'd probably confidently point to gravity, right? Or maybe the hard tiled floor, or, your own clumsy hands. We are so quick to identify an absolute cause that forcefully produces a specific effect. It just seems entirely obvious. But Nāgārjuna's philosophy, which is a school of thought called Madhyamaka, insists that this linear, independent understanding of cause and effect is actually a massive illusion. We have this habit of reifying the world. Basically, we turn flowing processes into solid, stable things with independent origins. But Nāgārjuna argues that in reality, there are absolutely no inherently real, independent causes out there. None.
Section 2, the trap of the 4 extremes. To prove this to us, Nāgārjuna deploys a pretty ruthless piece of logic that, honestly, it might feel like it's short-circuiting your brain a little bit. He precisely targets our deepest assumptions about how one thing supposedly creates another.
He takes every single possible way we think causation works, breaks them down into 4 distinct arguments. This is known as the tetralemma, and then he systematically and completely refutes them all. First up, self-causation. Can a thing arise from itself? Well, no. If it already exists, it doesn't need to be produced, right? It's totally redundant. Okay, second, from something else. Can a thing arise from something entirely other than itself? No again. If cause and effect are completely separate, independent entities, there's no bridge between them. Literally anything could randomly cause anything else. Third, could it be a combination of self and other? Well, that just combines the logical flaws of the first 2 we just talked about. And finally, number 4, it cannot arise from neither, meaning from nothing. Because if that were true, the universe would just be pure, unpredictable chaos. He sums this up with a famous quote: "No thing anywhere is ever born from itself, from something else, from both, or without a cause." And this brilliantly hits the nail on the head. Think about it. If an independent, absolute cause had some inherent magical power to just forcefully create an effect, analyzing that logically leads you straight into total absurdity and contradiction. The absolute essence of the effect isn't hiding inside the conditions, and it's not completely unrelated to them either. So the idea of absolute causation, it's a complete myth. Section 3. The union of the 3 spheres. So if these absolute, independent causes do not exist, we're left with a pretty massive question. How in the world does the universe actually function? How did that glass break? To answer this, Nāgārjuna brings in the 3 spheres. Every action or event involves 3 components. You have the cause, which is the producer, the causality, which is the action of production itself, and the effect, the final product. Nāgārjuna's big breakthrough here is showing us that these 3 spheres are completely inseparable. They only exist in relation to one another. I mean, you can't have a producer without a product, right? And you can't have a product without the action of production. The absolutely crucial point here is the contrast between these 2 ideas. We have to completely abandon this idea of a linear chain, where an independent cause forcefully pushes a separate effect into existence, like one billiard ball just smacking into another. That's absolute linear causality. Instead, we have to shift our entire perspective over to interdependent co-emergence. The 3 spheres co-arise. They literally co-define each other. So instead of a straight line, I want you to think of reality as what the source text calls a limitless, centerless fractal of karma. Each of the 3 spheres is conditioned by and in turn conditions the others. Every single point is the effect of an infinity of causes, and simultaneously, it's the cause of an infinity of effects. Because they are entirely interdependent, they are completely empty of any inherent independent existence. Everything is just relationally contingent. Section 4, the magic of the two truths. Now, right about now, your brain might be hurting a bit, and it is very easy to fall into a trap here. You might be thinking, okay, so Nāgārjuna is just a nihilist. He's saying nothing is real, nothing matters, and causality is just a total lie. But no, he masterfully catches us right here with this concept of the two truths. Nāgārjuna is really guiding us toward the middle way, and this is a philosophical path that is completely free from the extremes. It's not the extreme of saying things have absolute permanent existence, but, and this is key, it is also not the extreme of saying things absolutely do not exist. The middle way doesn't reject causality entirely. Actually, scratch that. What it does is reject absolute causality, while fully, completely embracing conventional causality. Let's see how this framework of the two truths actually works in tandem. First, we have the ultimate truth. That's the realization that all phenomena, causes, effects, you, me, everything, are empty of absolute inherent existence. Second is the conventional truth. This is our everyday reality, where phenomena arise dependently and function perfectly well. Like, if you drop the glass, it still breaks conventionally. These two truths are a perfect union. Think about it. The very reason things can change, interact, and function conventionally is precisely because they are empty of rigid, absolute existence. If things were absolute, they would just be frozen and completely unchangeable forever. So, how should we be viewing reality? Well, the texts describe causes and effects as being like illusions, reflections, mirages, or echoes. They are there, yet not there. They are incredibly practical, incredibly useful tools for navigating life. They function perfectly well for us, just so long as we don't grasp at them as solid, permanent, independent truths. Section 5, Acting Without Acting. Let's see how this highly abstract philosophy actually builds into a practical framework for our everyday lives. Because what does the union of the three spheres actually mean for you when you wake up in the morning? Well, it leads us right into a state of being we can call acting without acting. In practice, this literally means surrendering the illusion of absolute control. You are never the sole absolute cause of anything, so you can absolutely stop carrying the weight of the entire world on your shoulders. It means flowing with interdependent conditions, recognizing that you're just part of this vast, incredible web. It frees us from that crushing deterministic anxiety because the universe isn't some rigid, predetermined machine. And finally, it lets us utilize concepts like our goals, our plans, as conventional tools, but without being absolutely attached to them. This right here is the ultimate takeaway from Chapter 1. We act conventionally without acting absolutely. This whole philosophy empowers us to act with fluid grace. We can still engage passionately with the world. We can absolutely strive for good outcomes and build our lives, all without obsessing over or being crushed by absolute outcomes. We understand the emptiness of the action, the actor, and the result, and that understanding completely removes the friction of ego and anxiety. So here's a thought to leave you with. Since you are deeply, intimately interconnected with the limitless conditions all around you, since you are not some isolated cause but a vital participant in a grand, centerless fractal, how will you consciously participate today? If the future isn't absolutely fixed but is dependently co-arising with your actions right now in this exact moment, what beautiful, empty mirage will you choose to co-create today? Keep that in mind as you go about your day.